welcome back to a series of lectures on floriculture. Today we will be talking about another ornamental plant which can be either cultivated as a pot ornamental or as a field ornamental. It is Goodietia, which is popularly known as satin flower or sometimes farewell to spring. Primarily these two names are reflected on the basis of the pattern of growth as well as adaptability of this plant. This plant actually is a plant from Northern America, where from it has been introduced to almost every other part of the world, and this plant is actually named after a person by the name of Charles Godet. It is considered that this is the person who actually not only identified it, but also tried to determine as to how, under which conditions and by which particular method this can be actually cultivated, not only as an ornamental plant but also as a source of commercial income. Primarily, this is a plant which has adaptability pattern to those conditions in which the temperature usually ranges between 25 to 30 degrees Celsius during summer, and during winter it does not drop below 0 degrees Celsius. Usually, if we want to cultivate it as a pot ornamental, here the preference is to use the dwarfer types or dwarfer varieties of the same plant, while as if we want to cultivate this as a field ornamental, in that case the preference is to grow plants which are slightly taller. On this basis, two different categories have been identified. One is referred to as dwarf Goodietia, wherein the height to a maximum level reaches about 12 to 14 inches, while as those which are taller grow sometimes up to 1 meter high. That means those ornamentals actually can be used for field cultivation, but in that case they can be grown only at the peripheral portion of these lawns. Generally, in both cases there are two fundamental requirements. One, as to when to start the plantation of this, and second, which part to use for propagation purposes. Generally, if we want to grow it as a field ornamental, that means wherein we want to cultivate it as a plant of the beds, in that case usually preference is to use seeds as the parts by which to propagate it, and these seeds are preferably sown in the month of March itself, and they are monitored for about a week, so that prior to the sign of any seedling developing there is no need to irrigate it. Usually the seeds are sown in those soils where the organic nutrient status as well as the soil texture is slightly soft and where the sand content is slightly lower, primarily because the seeds prefer here slightly moist soils, while as in sandy textured soils the moisture retention is slightly poorer. Usually the manually spread out, thinly spread out seeds are covered with either sawdust or sometimes even the organic materials or organic nutrients, and then they are allowed to germinate, and after germination first irrigation is carried out. Now you can see here the seedlings, they are sprouting and the irrigation is being carried out. Usually it has been seen that if the cultivation is to be carried out in the temperate areas or slightly cooler conditions, in those areas seeds are sown usually in the month of April or sometimes in the late week or the last week of March itself. However, if we want to cultivate it in tropical areas, in those areas usually sowing of the seeds is carried out either in the month of February or in the month of March itself, depending upon the climatic conditions or the temperature level. Generally, these seedlings actually take a very short duration of time to reach a stage wherein they can be transplanted. Now, in temperate areas it takes about 10 to 15 days for a seedling after germination to reach a height of 6 to 9 inches, and at that stage they are transplanted either into the beds or into the fields itself. But in case the same plant is to be used as a pot ornamental, there two methods have been standardized for its cultivation. One, using the seedling from the same beds in which we cultivate the field ornamentals, then try to sow these seedlings in the pot. Again you can see here seedlings in the pot are being sown, but here the preference is to actually sow at best 1 or maximum 2 seedlings per pot. However, in this case the primary requirement is that the pot should have a combination of 50% sand and 50% clay. That means there should be a common presentation of both sand as well as clay, while as in the field conditions preference is to actually provide slight amount or slight quantity of sand so that the soil remains slightly loosened in texture. Generally, In the pot or in the field, once we are transplanted, as you can see here, once they have been transplanted, there is need of providing irrigation so that the adaptability pattern is facilitated by this irrigation. Generally, in pots, as you can see here, we try to provide irrigation as soon as it shows signs of dryness. But in the field, as soon as the field as such, that is the bed as such, shows cracking of the surface soil, in that case it actually requests itself that it is actually in need of irrigation. Generally, in both cases, that is whether we are talking of pot cultivation or field cultivation, the irrigation should be provided in a way wherein not even a single part of the above ground portion, that is either a branchlet or a foliage or a bud of flowers or vegetative bud, is actually adhered to or touched by the water. That means addition of water or irrigation should not in any way affect the developmental pattern of these. In the pots, fundamental requirement is that once we provide irrigation, we should monitor whether the plant in the pot remains erect. Again, you can see here, if the pot tends to show that the plant is trying to bend towards one side, in that case there is a need of providing artificial support in the form of short stick or sometimes trying to bind it around a rope, so that that in turn facilitates its development. This is primarily because in the pot it takes slightly a longer duration for the plant to get adapted to that habitat. Further, once the seedlings have been transplanted and they show signs of adaptability, that means where the foliage is erect, branchlets are erect and the signs of the proper developments are shown by the plant, in that case fundamentally providing nutrients, especially inorganic nutrients, either urea or NPK, as you can see here, that is to be added, so that that addition in turn facilitates the proper vegetative development. Primarily, the addition of these fertilizers prior to the flower development is essential, because if they are added in the flowering stage, at that stage it has been seen that the development as well as the survival pattern of the flowers sometimes gets negatively affected. That means addition of the nutrients or fertilizers should be in the vegetative phase only, and that nutrient immediately should be provided the irrigation also. Again, you can see here nutrients are being supplied and that pots or the beds are continuously being irrigated. Generally, it has been seen that under ordinary conditions, that is the normal habitat of temperate or tropical areas, this plant has a very short period of life. That is, it is sown in the month of March or April depending upon the conditions in which you cultivate it, and flowering reaches its peak around the month of May, June or July, and by the end of July or in the first week of August, it shows signs of the senescence as well as the depletion of the flowers. That means the number of flowers as well as their quality gets decreased. However, at present a new concept has been developed, that is wherein we can cultivate this as a perennial, either pot ornamental or sometimes even as a perennial field ornamental. You can see here in the pots we have this plant growing or surviving, but this plant actually is surviving for longer durations, primarily because at the stage at which the flowers show signs of senescence, that means their color changes and the petals and sepals tend to drop. At that stage, the gardeners, what they do is try to cut off whatever branches have developed. You can see here they try to cut off branches that have developed or overdeveloped, or those branches in which the inflorescences or flowers are being born, they are cut off, and this cutting off in turn actually facilitates the survival of the plant for more than 1 year. Usually, it has been seen that in case this branching cutting pattern, that is the pruning of the branches, is carried out continuously throughout the year, that means at the end of each branch showing signs of senescence, in that case that pattern actually helps the plant to survive for longer durations. However, sometimes if the vegetative branches, that means where the flower development has not taken place and the bud formation has not taken place, if those branches are cut off, that is we are actually not cutting the flower branches where the senescence has been developed, but cutting those branches in which the bud has not as such been formed, that in turn has been seen to negatively or drastically affect not only survival pattern but also the productive quality. That means the gardeners or cultivators should monitor as to which branch is in need of cutting or pruning and which branch is in need of facilitating its survival for longer duration. Further, once the cutting has been carried out, it must be always monitored whether that cutting actually is positively affecting the developmental as well as the productive potential of the plant. That means if we cut off certain branches, it should be monitored for a couple of weeks so that to see whether newer branches are developing and whether each of these new branches actually are helping the new floral buds to form. That means it has shown signs of development of newer and newer ornamental parts. Now, in general, this pattern has been seen to not only improve the productive quality of flowers as well as survival pattern of the plants, but it has also been seen sometimes to positively affect the improvement not in terms of quality only, but also in terms of commercial values. In the floriculture wings, that is those who cultivate these plants as ornamentals, there is preference for those plants wherein foliage is not visible, but only the permanent part, that is the dominant part, is the one wherein only flowers or inflorescence is seen. Again, you can see here some flowers actually are so dominant that the vegetative part, either branches or leaves or main axis, is not seen. Now, automatically such a cultivation practice or such a method will facilitate not only the ornamental quality of these plants, but also improve the commercial values. Further, if somebody wants to see or analyze what the other patterns are useful in not only maintaining but modifying this, two practices have been started, wherein without cutting or pruning of these branches, one can actually use methods what is referred to as vegetative propagation. Now, it means that we are not destroying the plant, we are not cutting the branches, we are not using the seeds. What we are doing is trying to submerge one branch, sometimes more than one branch, under the soil, and that submergence in turn helps the roots to develop into newer plants. That means one plant can help us not only provide ornamental or decorative value, but the same plant can be used for cuttings or propagation purposes without actually destroying its productive quality or ornamental value. It has been seen that such methods are used in those areas where preference is for cultivation of this plant as a field ornamental. However, in certain areas where field survival of this plant is not possible, in pots such method is slightly modified, wherein the branchlet or a branch of a plant growing in one pot is actually submerged in the soil of another pot kept in the vicinity of the same. Again, you can see here, that means a branch of the plant that has been tried to bend is actually submerged in the second pot, and that pot actually serves as a medium or the substrate in which we try to use it as a method or as a means of vegetative propagation. That means one part is ornamental and second part is simply a medium or a field for propagation vegetatively. It means that we can use pot plants also for multiplying the same on commercial scale. However, in this method, the primary requirement is that the pot which is of decorative or ornamental value should be in the front, that is exposed to sunny conditions, while as the pot that is used for the vegetative propagation, that is cutting and layering, that should be kept under shady conditions or behind the ornamental pot, meaning thereby that the decorative and ornamental value is maintained, while as the vegetative propagation is actually facilitated by keeping that pot in the shady conditions. Here again, other important requirement is that if we provide irrigation to the main pot itself, we should also monitor whether the pot in which the branch has been submerged in the soil, that is actually properly refreshed or properly irrigated with the water. However, here one precaution is that if we add nutrients to the pot in which we cultivate the parental plant, the nutrients should not, I repeat, should not be added to the pot in which this vegetative method of propagation is followed. That is because in the preliminary developmental stages, addition of any nutrient, whether it is organic or inorganic, has been seen to negatively affect not only the survival pattern, but also the means of propagation. It has been seen that ordinarily such method of propagation takes an estimated 1 week, sometimes more than a week, to develop the roots, and once we see that the root has developed, in that case the parental branchlet is cut off from the progenial branchlet. That means parental pot's branch is cut off and the branch portion that is submerged in the secondary pot or the progenial pot, that is actually separated and now kept under controlled conditions, either in the pot house if it is done during the summer months, or in the greenhouse or hothouse if it is done in the winter conditions. That means in that case we have to monitor whether the progenial generation is able to survive under two extremities of the climate. Now, if this method is followed, it has been seen that ordinarily in the first year of such propagation, that is, if we do it say this year, it will not be able to reach the productive stage, that is, it may not produce flowers, yet it may produce many new branches, meaning thereby it adapts vegetatively, but does not reach the productive or ornamental stage. But next year, the same vegetative propagated plant actually is able to produce not only the progenial plant itself, but also produce in that progenial plant whatever flowers or whatever size, color or type of flowers we need. Again, you can see parental plant on one pot as well as the progenial pot on the other side, showing that these are two different in terms of their size as well as in terms of the branching pattern. That means we can easily demonstrate which is the parental plant, which is the progenial plant. However, the progenial plant in turn can also be actually modified and facilitated to grow properly, provided it is actually provided whatever nutrient, that is either organic manure or inorganic nutrients, are provided to it either once every growing season, or if we want to maintain it for longer duration, that is for more than 2 years, in that case the preferred preference is to use fertilizers thrice in one season. Here the 3 times are: first, immediately once the signs of emergence of shoots as well as development of buds takes place, that is in the months of spring, and then subsequently at the peak of flowering season, that is when the flowers are at the normal pattern of development as well as ornamentation, and third, once the plant shows signs of senescence, that is usually in the months of autumn. Now, it has been seen that if this pattern of the providing nutrients is followed regularly, same plant which is ordinarily an annual pot ornamental or annual field ornamental can be maintained and sustained for more than 5 years. That means we can practically, through experimentation as well as the normal floricultural practices, convert an annual ornamental plant into a perennial ornamental plant also, wherein the quality as well as the productive potential in no way gets hampered or gets depleted. It has been seen that at present many commercial cultivators, without actually trying to use it as an annual plant by using seeds for propagation, try to use either methods of vegetative propagation or sometimes even cuttings, or cutting the rhizomatous portion or the basal root portion into segments and using that as the medium for propagation. And that in turn has actually not only facilitated its improvement on commercial scale, but also helped the cultivators to actually convert this plant, sometimes referred to as a wild ornamental, into an important commercial ornamental. In both cases, that is where we grow it as an annual plant, as an annual ornamental in pots or in fields, or where we grow it as a perennial pot ornamental or perennial field ornamental, essentially the fundamental requirement is monitoring the irrigation pattern. Now, it has been seen that if there is excessive irrigation, either naturally, that is in the form of rainfall, or by irregular maintenance of the gardeners or cultivators, in that case the dampness of the soil or muddy conditions of the soil have been seen to affect not only the quality of the flower production, but also the survival pattern of the plant. That means, if we provide excessive quantities of irrigation or excessive water to the plants either in the beds or in the pots, that irrigation has been seen to drastically affect not only survival pattern, but also the productive potential. In certain areas, it has been seen that people, in order to prefer its perennial nature, they try to actually substitute the normal soils with excessive quantities of sand, because that sand quantity actually facilitates the seepage as well as evaporation of the excessive moisture or water that has been added. In this case, however, there is one fundamental drawback, and that is, if in sandy textured soils we provide any nutrient, either organic or inorganic, that nutrient will actually be drooping downwards because of the looseness of the soil, and that looseness of soil in turn depletes the plant from the nutrients, even though it may actually have excessive moisture quantity in the peripheral layers or bottomal layers, but that does not in any way improve the quality as well as survival patterns. At present, the Goditia has been seen to be one of the basic source of commercial income in those areas where ordinarily no other plant as such can be cultivated as a commercial ornamental. Reason for this is that this plant has a potential to adapt different climatic conditions as well as different habitat conditions, and these in turn have literally named it as a plant which can be labeled as cosmopolitan. cosmopolitan means a plant which can be cultivated anywhere and any extremities of not only habitat but also the weather conditions. At present, in areas like the northern parts of India where the temperature sometimes drops down much below 0, or in the central parts of India where it grows, the temperature is much above 40 to 45 degrees Celsius, it has been seen that even in these two extremities, the same plant can be used as either a pot ornamental or a field ornamental, yet the only preference is that one should always monitor and maintain whatever the fundamental requirements are. However, here as a pot ornamental, essential requirement is that there should be preference for those pots which have a proper evaporative mechanism or actually operative. That means we should not use cement or plastic manufactured pots, because in those pots, because of the lack of evaporation, excessive moisture may get deposited around the roots of these plants, which in turn affects not only the quality of survival as well as production, but also negatively affect the survival pattern of the plant as a whole. This means that the pot cultivation, even though useful, but is actually dependent upon the type of the pot that we use. Essentially, those pots which are manufactured by using soil are preferred, because in that case evaporative mechanisms are always operative, while as those pots wherein we use either plastic material or cement material, the evaporative mechanism is hampered, and that hampering in turn affects negatively not only the survival pattern but also the quality of production. In certain areas, especially in temperate parts, northern India, there is another practice wherein it is cultivated as a plant which can be maintained indoors. That is, we can use this as an ornamental which can be stored under extremity, that is inside either a room or sometimes even corridors. The reason for that is that it does not actually need continuous exposure to sunny conditions. That means a plant which can be cultivated in a pot has a preference towards those habitats wherein sun is not prominently providing light to it, can also facilitate its survival. That means an indoor maintenance either in the corridors or in the rooms, etc., it can be grown or it can be maintained, and that maintenance as well as growing in no way harms or affects not only productive potential but also survival. But in those conditions there is only one requirement, and that is we must provide it fresh air every day, because that fresh air actually facilitates its survival, meaning thereby that if it is kept in a room where the ventilation pattern is negatively affected, that is the window is not kept open or the door is not kept open, that closing of windows and doors actually negatively affects not only the plant itself but also drastically destroys its ornamental value. It has been seen that this pattern, that is maintenance of this plant under conditions in which we grow it indoors, is only in need of providing proper ventilation mechanism, that is fresh air should always ooze in, while as whatever the air filled up with carbon dioxide is in that room or in that particular part of the home is to be always aerated, and that aeration actually helps it to survive under indoor conditions. Ordinarily, in different areas methods are different, yet the quality, methods of cultivation as well as its commercial value is the same, dependent primarily upon the survival pattern as well as quality of the flowers. But before we conclude, I must mention here that those who want to cultivate this plant should identify what sort of the plant they want in terms of its size. If they want to cultivate it as a pot ornamental, please select dwarfer plants. If they want to cultivate it as a field ornamental, in that case the preference should be for taller plants, because that dwarfer plant can only survive in pots, while as the taller plants can only survive in the field. I hope that this lecture would help you to actually try to domesticate this Godetia and use it as an ornamental, not only to decorate the homes but also use it as a source of commercial revenue. Thank you.